What does medical marijuana actually do to a fetus, you guys? The Arizona Department of Child Safety says it will no longer investigate reports of newborns who test positive for marijuana, as long as their parent has a medical marijuana card. The move came after an appeals court ruled in favor of a mother who used medical marijuana during pregnancy to curb severe nausea and vomiting. The decision said that kind of cannabis use is protected under Arizona's medical marijuana law because it's under a doctor's advice. So what does marijuana use do to a fetus, and how often do doctors in the valley see use during pregnancy? And so for more on that, this reporter from KJIZ out in Arizona, and talks with this Dr. Krista Labrizio, a doctor specializing in addiction medicine at Banner Health. Yeah, Jizz, J ZZZ or something. KJIZ, yeah, KJIZ. There we go. KJIZ out in Arizona. Shout out to KJIZ. So Krista Labrusto, she says, or Labruzzo, who is the doctor, she says, this has been something that I felt like I have been doing very long, and something we've been studying, and it's changed over time too, because as you see, marijuana used to be mostly in leaf form. It used to be mostly smoked, and now we kind of have legalization where we have the component of THC or tetrahydrocannabidiol, which is that kind of active component. So we see much higher potency now, and so the studies we have had from the 80s don't necessarily correlate with the potency that we're seeing right now. So there are a couple of studies that are kind of that are okay to look at. Any female with marijuana use during pregnancy, chronic, what do we see that happens with fetuses, and then later on with newborn and childhood and adolescence? And she says, well, what do we see is we have this natural endocannabinoid system in our body. It is what it is called. So we naturally have a system that is very similar to THC. So we get concerned when we have that natural system. What happens when we give it exogenous THC, and what does that look like? Because not only is it part of our immune system, it is part of an implementation, it is part of a pregnancy, it's part of a fetal development, she says. She also says, so what I see in a couple of these studies, we do have from, roughly the 2000 studies, we see that risk to baby in general, low birth weight, that they may have NICU stays, and they may be more stimulated, meaning more reactive to light, and just, a little bit more fussy, just because of a withdrawal-like state. We also see that young kiddos, even a young age, will have decreased verbal skills, and that adolescents are more likely to develop ADHD or issues with executive function and problems with substance use. So there are some things that we're seeing, but again, there's many confounds, meaning some of the mothers used other substances. Maybe there's low socioeconomic status, which is hard to get into programs and things like that. So there are other confounds, but there's definitely concern. Laura Glinger says, I have been pregnant, and I know that like mostly what happens is you have lots of things that you have not been that you have not been able to study during pregnancy. So they will say, we don't really know, so don't do it or don't use it. Don't take that medicine because we don't really know. It sounds like this sort of falls in that category. Why is it so difficult to have this studied? And so Labrizio responds, it's difficult because if you think about it, we can't do randomized clinical trials. If there is risk that we are aware of, which look at the longitudinal studies, it's unethical to tell someone, okay, you're going to smoke marijuana and you're not, and to have that potential of having these issues with the fetus or with the newborn. And so we have to look longitudinally, and a lot of times it's retrospective meaning. You know, we're asking moms to look back at in pregnancy, tell us how much they were using or smoking, were they using anything else? And sometimes, you know, looking back, we're just not as confident, or, you know, it's just not correct. You don't remember everything, and so it becomes a little difficult for that kind of look into those types of details. Gillinger says, so how do we know how common it is that a pregnant person will be prescribed even something like medical marijuana to treat something like morning sickness? I know that exists, right? And Labruzio says, yes, it does. And, you know, here in the Valley, I would say it's very uncommon. I have not seen it any prescriber, and that's only because we do have medications for morning sickness that are safer, that we know are safer. So it should be very rare, and we also just don't have good data that says, hey, does this actually help? What the risk versus benefit here for people? I will say anecdotally, there are studies that say pregnant women say marijuana use does help their morning sickness, but we just don't have great data that shows the objective data, whether we do have less vomiting, whether we do have less hypermesis, and that kind of thing. Since we do have some safe medications, those are the first line, definitely. And this article goes on and on and on with questions, and you can read it all on our website at www.high9news.com. But in the essence of time, I would really love to hear what the doctors have to say and the moms have to say about this. And this is Jason Beck for the High at 9 News. What do y'all think?
And the dads.
Well, I think we do have data.
Dads in here too.
Well, the dads weren't referenced in the article, Rico. So you got left out on that one.
Yeah.
We definitely do have some data. Melanie Dreher did a study in Jamaica. It was a 10-year study. It got canceled after 5 years because she reported benefits versus harm, and she regretted that greatly to that day. She's like, I probably could have reported differently. I was just so excited about it. And then because we remember that Congress made the law that when DCP, by extension NIDA, have to do anything within its power to not allow it to be legalized. So it's allowed to fund studies to show harm, not benefits. Mm-hmm. I do agree that was different. These were root daughters, ganja mm-hmm. moms. We're talking about like pinner joints that none of you would, you're not necessarily going to puff and pass. But some of them smoked, up to 70 pinner joints a day. And in 12 of the 14 indicators, the children of the root daughters actually showed higher indicators across the board. So I think that the problem here is that the only children we test are the ones whose parents got caught. So there's no comparison of how kids do otherwise out in the wild. And I also just want to point out real quick, the drugs that they prescribe to moms. Okay, the drugs that I took that were prescribed to me, I still see on cable news with the commercial saying that I should call and sue those companies because it does cause birth defects. It was never tested on children or women, and it was often prescribed off label. Benedictine is the one drug that was widely used for the treatment of nausea and vomiting until 1983. It was yanked. FDA discontinued it because of lawsuits alleging that it caused congenital problems, but it continued to be used in Canada. And so the FDA just a couple years ago, or actually it would have been about 7 years ago, agreed to make it legal again here in the U.S. in time for my third pregnancy. The pill didn't work. It didn't do a goddamn thing. And can I tell you how easy it is to keep a pill down when you can't keep water down? Yeah, so not helpful at all. You can inhale cannabis. You cannot inhale Benedictine. But I just really want to shout out, look, first, hit of hope that a mom in Arizona was not just automatically, you are an abuser, a neglector of your child, and the child is suddenly removed and put in foster care, because mm-hmm. that is the most detrimental thing. To separate baby from mom, especially newborn, is detrimental to bonding. It's detrimental for the rest of that child's life. The most dangerous thing for that baby is just being caught with marijuana in its system. And so that we're finally acknowledging this. However, moms, pregnant women, people who love pregnant women, this doesn't mean it's okay to go tell your doctor. There are mandatory reporting requirements in every state. You're still going to have to prove it on the other side, and it's going to be rough between now and then. So you have to be really careful about who you tell and who you share your cannabis consumption with. And with pregnancy, you're supposed to avoid all extra things. Eat healthy food, drink lots of water, don't drink soda, don't take recreational drugs. In this case, you take enough to stop puking your guts out and stop. Like these pregnant moms aren't like, give me as hot as I can. Like, I wouldn't take cold medicine when I was pregnant. We're not just looking to get high. We're looking to get better. And I'm just grateful that we're finally, this is a glimmer of hope.
Dr. Talleyrand, I noticed in there that the doctor in Arizona makes the statement that, well, the stuff that we have works better, and we don't have enough knowledge to know if cannabis works. To me, that seems like a very hypocritical statement that she's willing to put her medical. Yeah, exactly. Is that she's willing to say, hey, you probably shouldn't use it, and we have better things to do, but yet we don't have any data to show whether or not this could be better or not. And so it's very contradictory in the statement. What do you have to say about that, Dr. T?
I agree, Jason. That's a great observation. She contradicted herself there. First of all, as a public service announcement, if you're having aches and pains in third trimester, please do not use ibuprofen. It's dangerous for the pregnancy. And the ibuprofen, by the way, is available for anyone to pick up in
over the counter.
The store over the counter. So yes, ibuprofen, Advil. Don't use Advil in pregnancy. So, this is the contradiction in our medical environment. We've been told a lot of negative things about cannabis because we don't have information. We prejudge, these are the responses that you get. Let's give Arizona a pat on the back for, creating this law. It's pretty progressive. Absolutely great that they just took cannabis out of the equation here.
I think this is fantastic for parents in Arizona, and hopefully this will transcend into other states as well, because it is shameful. I agree with you 100%, Dale. It's terrible for them to be taking babies away from their parents. It's a shame, crying shame. You have anything to say about this, Dope Dad? Making sure that we include our dads.
Hell yeah. I'm the first one who brought this story up about a month and a half ago, fool. That's what I said. And the dope dads. It takes two to tango. It takes two to create a life. And in these unprecedented times, unfortunately, that's a huge issue that a lot of women are going to have to make that choice about this election coming up. Are you going to be pro women's rights? There's two choices there. I'll just leave it at that.
All right, want my opinion?
Yeah, go for it, Dr. Mark. Go for it, 100%.
All right, it's already been proven that there's cannabinoids in mother's milk. There's lots of advantages to mother's milk, right? It tastes good. I wouldn't know that by... comes in the cutest containers.
It does come in the best containers, that's for sure, Dr. Mark.
But so the fact of the suckling response of the infant is due to a endocannabinoid triggered response.
Deficiency,
yes, that's been proven. That's been proven. So anything that helps. It's basically it's part of the makeup of our chemistry. And in the transition of taking a kid from mother's milk to solid food, they get a fair dose of endocannabinoids in that mother's milk. So you can't really say that, well, compounds that are acting on the cannabinoid receptors are bad for either mother or baby because it's naturally already happening, folks. So,
yeah, it's chemically the same. The endocannabinoid the mother produces and the phytocannabinoid from the plant. When they did a mouse study, they removed the receptors from the mice, and those little babies died. They had no desire, no will to eat. Now, this actually triggered a lot of pharmaceutical companies to get very excited because, like, oh, lose your will to eat, diet pills. So those diet pills, I remember one was called Ramonabant, I believe. They were approved in Europe, but not the U.S. Well, that whole will to live, that part of our receptor system, the will to eat is attached to the will to live. And a lot of folks died by suicide after getting slim and beautiful because they just didn't care anymore about anything. And so this is a universal system. We don't understand the universe, nor do we understand the system.
On that, we got to go right on into Dr. Jean Talleyrand.